We're just friends, Marian said, not looking up from her laptop. The glow from the screen painted her face in that cold blue light I'd grown to hate. She was sitting at our kitchen table, still in her work clothes at 11:30 on a Tuesday night, typing away like the world would end if she stopped. Friends don't text each other at midnight, I said, wiping grease from my hands with an old shop rag. I'd been working late again, trying to finish Mrs. Henderson's transmission before morning. The smell of motor oil clung to my coveralls like a second skin. Marion finally looked up, and I saw that expression, the one she'd been wearing more and more lately, like I was some kind of inconvenience she had to tolerate. Callum and I work together, Elias. He's my protégé. Sometimes business doesn't follow your 9-to-5 schedule. Callum Hart. 28 years old, fresh out of some fancy business school, all teeth and hair gel. The golden boy at Marion's marketing firm. She'd been mentioning him a lot lately. Too much, if you ask me, which nobody did. Right, I said, because what else was there to say? I'd been married to Marion Ford for 19 years. I knew when to pick my battles, and this wasn't one I could win, not tonight anyway. I headed upstairs, leaving her to her work. Our daughter Sophie was home from college for the week, and I could hear music coming from her room. At least someone in this house was happy. The next morning, Marion was already gone when I woke up. No note, no goodbye. Just the lingering smell of her expensive perfume and an empty coffee cup in the sink. I made my own breakfast and drove to the shop, thinking about that look she'd given me, like I was the problem. Ford's auto repair had been my life for 15 years. I'd built it from nothing after getting laid off from the factory, turning a rundown garage into something respectable. The walls were covered with photos of classic cars I'd restored, certificates from training courses, and a few faded pictures of Marion and Sophie from better times. My assistant Danny was already there when I arrived, working on a brake job. Good kid, reminded me of myself at 25. All enthusiasm and motor oil stains. "Morning, boss," he said, sliding out from under a Honda Civic. "Mrs. Patterson called about her Buick. Says it's making that noise again." "Which noise?" I asked, pulling on my coveralls. The grinding noise or the squealing noise? The expensive noise. I almost smiled. Almost. But my mind kept drifting back to Marion and her late-night texting sessions. "Friends," she said. "Just friends." Around noon, Sophie showed up with lunch from the deli down the street. She was a good kid, 20 years old, studying business at the state university. Smart as a whip, with her mother's looks, and thankfully, more of my common sense. "You look tired, Dad," she said, handing me a sandwich. Turkey and Swiss, my favorite. At least someone in my family still paid attention to details. "Your mother was working late again," I said, taking a bite. "With her friend Callum." Sophie's expression changed. Just for a second, but I caught it. A flicker of something, knowledge maybe, or pity. "Dad," she said carefully, "you know Mom and Callum are just friends, right? I mean, everyone knows that. You're the only one who doesn't see it." The sandwich turned to cardboard in my mouth. "See what?" But Sophie had already realized she'd said too much. She backpedaled, making excuses about needing to meet friends, and left me sitting there with half a sandwich and a growing knot in my stomach. That evening, Marion came home around 9, claiming she'd been strategizing with Callum about some big client presentation. She was in a good mood, humming while she made herself a salad, chattering about office politics and campaign ideas. I watched her from the living room, pretending to watch the news. This was my wife of 19 years, the woman who'd stood by me when I lost my job, who'd helped me build the business from nothing, the woman who'd given me Sophie, the best thing in my life. But something had changed. When had she stopped looking at me like I mattered? When had I become the stranger in my own house? After she went to bed, I found myself staring at my phone. Social media wasn't really my thing. I had accounts, but mostly just looked at car restoration pages and local business groups. But Marion was always on Instagram, Facebook, all of it. She said it was for work, building her personal brand. I knew Callum's last name from Marion's stories. Hart. Callum Hart. It took me about 30 seconds to find his Instagram profile. The guy wasn't exactly hiding. Public account, hundreds of photos of himself at restaurants, gyms, work events. Always smiling, always perfectly groomed. I started scrolling, not sure what I was looking for. Pictures of expensive meals, workout selfies, group shots from office parties. Marion appeared in several of them, always standing close, always smiling. Just coworkers having fun, right? Then I found it. 6 months ago. A photo posted at 2:17 a.m. on a Saturday night. The caption read, "Sometimes the best conversations happen after midnight." But it wasn't the caption that made my hands shake. It was the image. Marion, asleep in a bed I didn't recognize. She was wearing one of my old shop t-shirts, the faded blue one with Ford's Auto Repair printed on the front, the one that had gone missing from our laundry months ago. Her hair was spread across a pillow, and she looked peaceful, content, beautiful even. But she wasn't in our bed. The walls were wrong, the window was wrong, everything was wrong. And there, in the corner of the frame, was part of a dresser I'd never seen before. Modern, expensive looking. Nothing like the furniture in our bedroom. I screenshot the photo, my hands trembling. The location tag read Downtown Loft District, Callum's neighborhood. For a long time, I just stared at the image on my phone. 6 months ago. Marion had told me she was at her sister's house that weekend, helping with some family crisis. I'd stayed home, worked on a restoration project in the garage, ordered pizza, watched old movies, while my wife was sleeping in another man's bed, wearing my shirt. The smart thing would have been to confront her privately, to sit down like adults and talk about what this meant, what we were going to do about it. The smart thing would have been to call a lawyer, document everything properly, handle this with dignity. But I wasn't feeling smart. I was feeling angry and hurt and betrayed. And I was remembering something Sophie had said. Everyone knows that. You're the only one who doesn't see it. Everyone knew. Everyone except me. I opened Facebook and navigated to Marion's family group chat. The Ford family, 43 members spanning 3 generations. Marion's parents, her siblings, cousins, aunts, uncles, even some family friends who'd been adopted into the group over the years. Marion was proud of her big, close-knit family. She posted constantly, photos from our vacations, updates about Sophie's college achievements, pictures of holiday gatherings. They all loved Marion. She was the successful one, the marketing executive with the nice house and the perfect family. I was just the mechanic she'd married, the blue-collar husband who fixed cars while she climbed corporate ladders. Well, let's see how much they loved her now. I uploaded the screenshot and typed one simple question. Does anyone know this bedroom? Then I hit send and waited. The first response came within 3 minutes. Marion's cousin Jessica. OMG Eli. What is this? Then the floodgates opened. By the time I went to bed an hour later, there were 37 messages in the group chat. 37 messages that ranged from confusion to shock to outright horror as the family pieced together what they were seeing. Marion's younger sister Rebecca was the one who identified the location. Wait, isn't this Callum's place? I was there for that work party Marion hosted last year. Same dresser, same window view. Her brother Michael chimed in. The timestamp says 2 a.m. Wasn't Marion supposed to be at Rebecca's that weekend? Rebecca again. She never came to my house. I thought she was home with Eli. And then the questions started flying. Where was this taken? Who took it? How long had this been going on? What did this mean for Sophie? I turned off my phone and tried to sleep, but my mind was racing. Somewhere across town, Marion was probably dealing with the fallout. Her phone would be buzzing constantly, family members calling and texting, demanding explanations. Good. Let her explain this one away. I woke up to silence. No sounds from Marion's side of the bed, no shower running, no coffee brewing downstairs. When I checked the driveway, her car was gone. My phone had 43 missed calls and 67 text messages. Most were from Marion, increasingly frantic attempts to reach me, to explain what had happened, to beg me not to jump to conclusions. But mixed in with her messages were others. Marion's mother had called 6 times. Her sister Rebecca had sent a long text saying she was disappointed and confused. Her Aunt Linda, the family matriarch who'd always treated me like an outsider, had left a voicemail that was surprisingly sympathetic. The best part was watching the group chat evolve throughout the night. I could see exactly when Marion had tried to do damage control, posting a long explanation about how the photo was taken out of context and was actually from a work situation that had been misunderstood. Nobody was buying it. Her cousin David, who worked in IT, had done some digging. The metadata shows this was posted from Callum's apartment. And Marion, if this was innocent, why didn't you mention staying there? Why did you tell 3 different people you were in 3 different places that night? By morning, the damage was done. Marion's carefully crafted image as the perfect daughter, sister, and wife had crumbled in the span of a few hours. The family that had always seen her as the golden child was now questioning everything they thought they knew about her. I drove to the shop with a lighter heart than I'd had in months. For the first time in a long time, I felt like I had some control over my life. Danny was waiting for me with coffee and a concerned expression. You okay, boss? You look different. I'm fine, I said, and meant it. Better than fine, actually. How's the Patterson job coming? We worked in comfortable silence for a while, but I could feel Danny watching me. Finally, he spoke up. My dad went through something like this, he said quietly. When I was in high school, Mom was seeing her tennis instructor. I looked up from the engine I was working on. Yeah? How'd that turn out? Dad handled it all wrong. Got angry, made a scene, ended up looking like the bad guy. Mom got the house, half his business, and full custody. Danny shrugged. He always said he wished he'd been smarter about it. What would he have done differently? Documented everything, kept his cool, made her hang herself instead of handing her the rope. Smart kid. Smarter than his old man, apparently, and smarter than me, if I wasn't careful. Around noon, Marion showed up at the shop. I saw her car pull into the parking lot and felt my stomach tighten. She sat there for a few minutes, probably working up the courage to come inside before finally walking through the front door. She looked terrible. Her usually perfect hair was pulled back in a messy ponytail. Her makeup couldn't quite hide the dark circles under her eyes, and her hands were shaking slightly. Good. We need to talk, she said without preamble. I'm working, I replied, not looking up from the carburetor I was rebuilding. Make an appointment. Don't be like this, Eli. Please, let me explain. Now I did look up. Explain what? How you've been lying to me for months? How you've been making me look like a fool in front of everyone we know? How you've been sleeping in another man's bed wearing my shirt? Her face crumpled. It's not what you think. Callum and I, we're not. It's complicated. Seems pretty simple to me. You're having an affair. I'm not. The words came out too loud, too desperate. Danny and our customer, Mrs. Patterson, both turned to look. Marion lowered her voice. I'm not having an affair. That photo, there's an explanation. I'm listening. She glanced around the shop, clearly uncomfortable with the audience. Can we go somewhere private? No, you wanted to have this conversation at my workplace. We'll have it here. What's your explanation? Marion's mouth opened and closed a few times before she found her voice. I had too much to drink that night, at a work event. Callum offered to let me sleep it off at his place instead of driving home. Nothing happened. In my shirt? I spilled wine on my blouse. He gave me something to sleep in. My shirt, from our laundry. He must have. I don't know how he got it. Maybe I left it there another time when we were working on a project. Even Mrs. Patterson was shaking her head now. The lies were so transparent, so desperate, that they were almost insulting. And you didn't think to mention this to me because I knew you'd react exactly like this. I knew you'd assume the worst instead of trusting me. That stung, because part of me wanted to believe her. Part of me wanted to accept her explanation, forgive her, and go back to the way things were. But I couldn't ignore what I'd seen, what the family had figured out, what everyone apparently knew except me. Get out, I said quietly. Eli, please, get out of my shop, Marion. We'll talk when I get home. Maybe, if I feel like it. She stood there for another moment, tears starting to flow, before finally turning and walking out. Through the window, I watched her sit in her car for several minutes, probably crying, before driving away. Mrs. Patterson approached the counter. That your wife? For now. She nodded sympathetically. My Harold pulled the same nonsense 15 years ago. Thought he was being clever. She paused. Of course, I made him pay for it in the end. How so? Mrs. Patterson smiled, and for the first time I saw some steel in the elderly woman's eyes. Let's just say Harold learned that a woman who's been married 40 years knows where all the bodies are buried. Figuratively speaking, of course. After she left, Danny and I worked in silence for a while. Finally, he spoke up. You know what you're going to do? I thought about it. The smart play was to hire a lawyer, file for divorce, try to get a fair settlement. The safe play was to handle this quietly, with dignity, like a mature adult. But I wasn't feeling mature. I was feeling vindictive. Yeah, I said. I think I do. That evening, I came home to find Marion waiting in the living room with a bottle of wine and what looked like a prepared speech. She changed clothes, fixed her hair, and put on the dress I'd always liked. She was pulling out all the stops. I made dinner, she said as soon as I walked in. Your favorite, pot roast with those little potatoes you like. I could smell it cooking, and despite everything, my stomach growled. I hadn't eaten since breakfast. We need to talk about this morning, she continued. About that photo, about everything. I owe you an explanation. You gave me an explanation. You were helping your friend Callum by sleeping in his bed wearing my shirt. She winced. I know how it sounds, but do you? Do you really? Because it sounds like you've been having an affair for at least 6 months, probably longer. It sounds like you've been lying to me, to your family, to everyone. It sounds like I've been the last to know that my wife is sleeping with her coworker. Marian set down her wine glass with shaking hands. I haven't been sleeping with him. Not the way you mean? What other way is there? We're close. Closer than we should be, maybe. But we're not. She couldn't finish the sentence. I stared at her, this woman I'd loved for almost 2 decades, and realized I didn't know her anymore. Maybe I never had. Sophie knows, I said finally. Marian's face went white. What? She said everyone knows, everyone except me. How long have you been making me look like an idiot, Marian? I never meant for this to happen. It started as friendship, as mentoring, and then it became something else. But we haven't crossed any lines, Eli. I swear to you. Sleeping in his bed isn't crossing a line. I told you, I was intoxicated. I made a mistake. One mistake. Or a pattern of mistakes that everyone can see except your stupid husband. She was crying now, mascara running down her cheeks. Don't call yourself stupid. You're not stupid. You're a good man, a good husband, and I don't deserve you. I know that. But please, please don't give up on us. Not yet. For a moment, I almost believed her. Almost let myself hope that this was all a misunderstanding, that we could work through it, that our marriage could survive this. Then I remembered the photo, the timestamp, the lies, the look in her eyes when she talked about Callum. I'm sleeping in the guest room, I said. Tomorrow we're going to figure out how to handle this. Lawyers, division of assets, custody arrangements for Sophie when she's home from college. You're filing for divorce? Are you going to stop seeing Callum? The question hung in the air between us. It should have been an easy answer. Of course she would stop seeing him. Of course she would choose her marriage over whatever this thing was with her coworker, but she hesitated. Just for a second, but long enough for both of us to know the answer. It's not that simple, she said finally. We work together. I can't just... Then yes, I said. I'm filing for divorce. I went upstairs, leaving her crying in the living room with her pot roast and her wine and her carefully prepared speech. In the guest room, I lay on the narrow bed and stared at the ceiling, thinking about 19 years of marriage and how quickly it could all fall apart. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. This is Callum. We need to talk. I deleted it without responding, let him sweat for a while, let them both sweat. Tomorrow, I decided, the real fun would begin. I woke up to the sound of Marion's car leaving the driveway at 6:30 a.m. She was running early, probably trying to get to the office before anyone else arrived. Damage control mode. Too little, too late. My phone showed 3 more texts from Callum, each one more desperate than the last. The final one, sent at 2:47 a.m., read, Look, I know you're angry, but this isn't what you think. Marion and I are just friends. She's been helping me through some personal stuff. That photo was completely innocent. And just friends. There was that phrase again. I made coffee and sat at the kitchen table, thinking about my next move. The smart thing would be to call a lawyer, start the divorce proceedings, try to salvage what I could from the wreckage of my marriage. But Danny's words kept echoing in my head. Made her hang herself instead of handing her the rope. Marion had built her entire identity around being perfect. Perfect daughter, perfect wife, perfect mother, perfect career woman. She was active on social media, always posting about our wonderful life and her amazing family. She cared deeply about what people thought of her. That was her weakness. I opened Instagram and looked at Callum's profile again. The guy posted constantly, every meal, every workout, every social event. His life was an open book, which made him incredibly easy to research. I started taking screenshots, photos of expensive dinners at restaurants I'd never heard of, pictures of him at the gym, at bars, at work events. Several included Marion, always standing a little too close, smiling a little too brightly. But the real gold mine was in the comments. Friends and coworkers joking about his work wife. Someone asking if he and Marion were dating. His responses were always playful, but never quite denying anything. One comment thread from 3 months ago caught my attention. Under a photo of Marion and Callum at some marketing conference, a woman named Jessica had written, "You two are so cute together. When are you going to make it official?" Callum's response, "All good things come to those who wait." Marion had liked the comment. I screenshot everything and started a folder on my phone labeled Evidence. Then I did something that probably wasn't entirely legal, but felt absolutely necessary. I used Marion's laptop to log into her social media accounts. She'd never been good with passwords, always using variations of the same few phrases. It took me 3 tries to get into her Facebook account. Sophie 2003. Our daughter's name and birth year. What I found there made my stomach turn. Months of private messages with Callum. Not explicitly romantic, but intimate in a way that made my skin crawl. Late-night conversations about their dreams, their fears, their frustrations. Marion complaining about me, about our marriage, about how disconnected she felt. Callum playing the understanding friend, the shoulder to cry on. Gradually escalating the emotional intimacy until the line between friendship and something else had completely disappeared. The worst part was reading Marion's messages about me, how I didn't understand her anymore, how I was content with mediocrity while she wanted more from life, how she felt trapped in our suburban existence. Apparently, I was boring, predictable, a good man, but not an exciting one. Well, let's see how boring she found me now. I forwarded the most damaging message threads to my own email, then logged out and closed the laptop. By the time Marion got home that evening, she'd never know I'd been there. At the shop, Danny noticed my improved mood immediately. "You're humming," he said, looking up from an oil change. "That's new?" "Just feeling optimistic about the future," I said, and meant it. Around lunchtime, Sophie called. "Dad, I heard about what happened with the family group chat. Are you okay?" "I'm fine, sweetheart. Better than fine." "And Mom?" I paused, thinking about how to handle this. Sophie was 20 years old enough to understand that marriages sometimes failed, but she was still our daughter. I didn't want to poison her against her mother, no matter how I felt about Marion right now. "Your mom and I are working through some things," I said carefully. "It might get messy for a while, but we both love you very much. That won't change, no matter what happens." "I'm sorry, Dad. I should have said something sooner. About Callum, I mean. I hoped it wasn't what it looked like." "It's not your job to police your parents' marriage, Sophie. You did nothing wrong." After we hung up, I felt a stab of guilt. This wasn't just about Marion and me anymore. Sophie would be caught in the middle, forced to choose sides or navigate the awkwardness of split holidays and separate graduations, but that was Marion's fault, not mine. She was the one who decided to blow up our family for some young hotshot at her office. That afternoon brought an unexpected visitor. Paula Hendricks, Marion's coworker and biggest rival at the marketing firm, walked into my shop like she owned the place. I'd met Paula a few times at company parties. She was everything Marion wasn't, loud, brash, unfiltered. Marion always complained about her, claiming Paula was unprofessional and jealous of Marion's success. "Eli Ford," she said, extending a manicured hand. "We need to talk." "About what?" "About your wife and her boy toy, and about how we can help each other." I gestured toward the office, and she followed me in, closing the door behind her. "I'm going to be direct," Paula said, settling into the chair across from my desk. "Marion and Callum have been carrying on for months. Everyone at the office knows it. It's been affecting their work, creating a hostile environment, and frankly, it's unprofessional as hell." "Why are you telling me this?" Paula smiled, and it wasn't a nice expression. "Because Marion has been using her relationship with Callum to advance her career. He's been feeding her information about clients, helping her undercut other people's proposals, giving her advantages she doesn't deserve, including mine." Now we were getting somewhere. "And you have proof of this?" "I have emails, recorded conversations, documented instances of favoritism, enough to get them both terminated, if it came to that." "What do you want from me?" "I want Marion gone. She's been a thorn in my side for years, and now she's handed me the perfect opportunity to get rid of her. But I need someone on the outside to file the complaint. Someone with standing." "Her husband." "Exactly. You file a complaint about the affair creating a hostile work environment, I provide the evidence of their professional misconduct, and boom, Marion's career is over." I leaned back in my chair, studying Paula's face. She was enjoying this, I realized. This wasn't just about professional rivalry. This was personal. "What's the real story here, Paula? Why do you hate Marion so much?" Her smile faltered for just a moment. 5 years ago, I was up for a promotion, senior account manager. I'd been with the company longer, had better numbers, more experience, but Marion swooped in at the last minute with some innovative campaign proposal that wowed the bosses. Got the job, got the corner office, got the respect that should have been mine. And I found out later that she'd stolen the idea from me. I'd pitched something similar in a team meeting months earlier, and she'd taken notes, modified it just enough to make it her own. "You never said anything?" Who would have believed me? Marion was the golden girl, the rising star. I was just the jealous coworker making accusations. Paula's eyes hardened. But now she's given me ammunition, and I intend to use it. I thought about Danny's father, about handling things the smart way instead of the emotional way. Paula was offering me a nuclear option, a way to destroy not just Marion's marriage, but her career, her reputation, her entire carefully constructed life. "I'll think about it," I said. "Don't think too long," Paula replied, standing up. "Opportunities like this don't last forever." After she left, I sat in my office for a long time, staring at the photos on my desk. Marion and Sophie at Sophie's high school graduation. Our family vacation to the beach 3 summers ago. Marion and me at our wedding, young and happy, and convinced we'd found forever. When had it all gone wrong? When had we stopped talking, stopped connecting, stopped being partners in this life we'd built together? Maybe it didn't matter. Maybe the why was less important than the what now. That evening, Marion came home with Chinese takeout and an apologetic smile. "I thought we could have a quiet dinner," she said. "Talk about things, figure out how to move forward." Forward toward what? I don't know, toward something better than this. She gestured between us. "We used to be happy, Eli. We used to be good together." "That was before you decided to explore other options." She flinched. "I told you, Callum and I aren't what? Aren't sleeping together? Aren't emotionally involved? Aren't planning a future that doesn't include me?" "How can you say that?" I pulled out my phone and showed her one of the screenshots from her Facebook messages. Her face went white as she read her own words back to herself. "You went through my private messages? Your laptop was open. Your password was obvious. And these messages aren't exactly private when you're discussing our marriage with another man." Marion sat down heavily, the takeout forgotten. "You don't understand. I was just venting, just talking through my feelings. Everyone needs someone to talk to." "Everyone needs someone to talk to about their marriage? Someone other than their spouse?" "We don't talk anymore, Eli. When was the last time we had a real conversation? When was the last time you asked me about my dreams, my goals, my fears? When was the last time you gave me the chance? You're always working, always busy, always somewhere else. And apparently, that somewhere else is with Callum." We stared at each other across the kitchen table, 19 years of marriage and a lifetime of shared memories hanging in the balance. "What do you want me to do?" Marion asked finally. "I want you to choose, him or me, your marriage or your friend, but you don't get both? It's not that simple. It's exactly that simple." Marion was quiet for a long time, staring at her hands. When she finally looked up, I saw something in her eyes that I'd never seen before. Not love, not regret, not even guilt. I saw calculation. "I need time," she said. "This is all happening so fast. I need time to think, to figure out what I want." "How much time?" "I don't know. A few weeks? A month? And in the meantime?" "In the meantime, we try to be civil, for Sophie's sake, if nothing else." I nodded, but inside I was already planning my next move. Marion wanted time? Fine. I'd give her time. Time to watch her perfect life crumble around her, piece by piece. Time to learn that some choices came with consequences she wasn't prepared to face. "Okay," I said. "Take all the time you need." But I was done waiting. The next morning, I made 2 phone calls. The first was to a divorce attorney recommended by Mrs. Patterson's nephew. The second was to Paula Hendricks. "I'm in," I told her. "What do you need from me?" "Meet me for coffee this afternoon. Bring everything you've got on Marion and Callum. Photos, messages, whatever evidence you've collected." "And then?" "And then we end both their careers." The attorney, Jennifer Walsh, was exactly what I needed. Sharp, experienced, and completely unsympathetic to cheating spouses. Her office was downtown, in one of those glass towers that made me feel underdressed in my work clothes. "Mr. Ford," she said, shaking my hand with a grip that could crack walnuts, "I understand you're dealing with an adultery situation." "That's one way to put it." I laid out everything. The Instagram photo, the family group chat explosion, the Facebook messages, the timeline of lies and deception. Jennifer took notes, asked pointed questions, and nodded approvingly when I showed her the screenshots. "This is good," she said finally. "Very good. Your wife has been sloppy, which makes my job easier. With evidence like this, we can push for a favorable settlement. Adultery might not be grounds for divorce in this state anymore, but it's certainly grounds for a bigger share of the marital assets." "What about the house?" "Depends. How long have you owned it? Who's on the mortgage? What's the current value?" We spent an hour going through the details of my financial life. The house, the business, our savings accounts, retirement funds, Sophie's college expenses. It was depressing, reducing 19 years of marriage to a spreadsheet of assets and liabilities. "I'll file the initial paperwork this week," Jennifer said as we wrapped up. "Your wife will be served at her workplace, which should maximize the embarrassment factor." "Is that necessary?" Jennifer's smile was predatory. "Mr. Ford, your wife has been humiliating you for months. Turnabout is fair play." My meeting with Paula was at a coffee shop near the marketing firm where Marion worked. She was already there when I arrived, laptop open, looking every inch the corporate shark. "Perfect timing," she said as I sat down. "I just finished compiling everything we need." She turned her laptop toward me, and I saw a folder labeled Hart Ford Misconduct. Inside were dozens of files, emails, recorded phone calls, meeting transcripts, even security camera footage from the office. "This is comprehensive," I said. "I've been building this case for months. I just needed the right moment to deploy it." Paula's eyes gleamed. "Your little Instagram revelation was the perfect catalyst." She walked me through the evidence. Emails showing Callum sharing confidential client information with Marion, recorded conversations where they discussed sabotaging other employees' projects, security footage of them working late together, alone in the office, in ways that were clearly unprofessional. "The smoking gun," Paula said, opening a final file, "is this. It was an email chain from 2 months ago. Marion had been competing with Paula for a major client account, a local restaurant chain looking to rebrand. The emails showed Callum feeding Marion inside information about the client's budget, preferences, and concerns that Paula had shared with him in confidence. Marion had won the account. Paula had been passed over for another promotion. "Corporate takes this kind of thing very seriously," Paula explained. "Breach of confidentiality, misuse of company resources, creating a hostile work environment through personal relationships. Either one of these issues could get them fired. Altogether, they're toast. What do you need from me?" "File a formal complaint with HR. As the wronged spouse, you have standing to claim their affair is creating a hostile work environment that reflects poorly on the company. I'll back it up with all this evidence." I stared at the laptop screen, thinking about Marion's face when she'd begged me not to give up on our marriage. She'd been calculating then, weighing her options, trying to figure out how to keep both her husband and her lover. Now she'd learned that some choices came with permanent consequences. "Do it," I said. Paula smiled. "I was hoping you'd say that." That evening, Marion came home in a great mood. She'd apparently had a successful day at work, landing another new client and getting praise from her boss. She was humming as she made dinner, chattering about office politics and weekend plans. "Oh, and Callum got some great news today," she said casually, as if mentioning the weather. "He's being considered for a promotion to senior account manager. Isn't that wonderful?" "Wonderful," I agreed. "I'm so proud of him. He's worked so hard, and he deserves this opportunity." I watched my wife glow with pride over another man's success and felt the last traces of guilt about my plans evaporate. "We should celebrate," I said. "Maybe invite him over for dinner this weekend?" Marion's face lit up. "Really? You'd be okay with that?" "Of course. If he's important to you, he's important to me." She actually hugged me then, pressing her face against my chest like she used to do when we were young. For a moment, I almost weakened. Almost called Jennifer Walsh and told her to hold off on the divorce papers. Almost called Paula and told her to forget about the HR complaint. But then Marion pulled back, and I saw the expression in her eyes. Relief, yes, but also something else. Something that looked almost like pity. Like she was proud of me for finally accepting my place as the clueless husband who'd learned to share his wife with her boyfriend. "I love you," she said, and I realized she actually meant it. In her twisted logic, she did love me. The same way someone might love a faithful dog or a comfortable chair. I was safe, reliable, undemanding. The perfect husband for a woman who wanted to have her cake and eat it too. "I love you too," I said, and kissed her forehead. It wasn't entirely a lie. I did love her. The woman she used to be, the woman I'd married, the woman who'd existed before Callum Hart entered our lives. But that woman was gone, replaced by someone I barely recognized, someone who was about to learn a very hard lesson about consequences. The next morning, Marion left for work, with a spring in her step, probably planning to share the good news about our dinner invitation with Callum. I waited until I was sure she was gone, then called Paula. "It's done," she said without preamble. "I filed the complaint an hour ago. HR is launching a full investigation, effective immediately." "How long before? Before they're both suspended? Probably by lunch, before they're terminated? End of the week, if we're lucky?" I felt a moment of vertigo, like standing on the edge of a cliff. Once this ball started rolling, there would be no stopping it. Marion's career, her reputation, her carefully constructed life, all of it would come crashing down. "Second thoughts?" Paula asked, reading my silence. "No," I said firmly. "No second thoughts." "Good, because there's one more thing you should know. Callum has a girlfriend. Had a girlfriend, I should say. She found out about the affair yesterday and confronted him at the office. Made quite a scene, apparently. Another casualty in this war. Another life disrupted by Marion and Callum's selfish choices. What's her name? Jessica Martinez. Nice girl, works in accounting. She and Callum have been together for 2 years. She was actually planning to move in with him next month. I thought about Jessica, whoever she was, discovering that her boyfriend had been cheating on her with a married coworker. I thought about the humiliation, the betrayal, the sudden upheaval of all her plans and dreams. Marion and Callum had hurt a lot of people with their friendship. It was time they faced some consequences. At the shop, I tried to focus on work, but my mind kept drifting to what was happening across town. Marion and Callum being called into HR, the evidence being presented, their faces as they realized how much trouble they were in. Around noon, my phone rang. Marion. Eli, she said, and I could hear the panic in her voice. Something terrible has happened. I need you to come pick me up. What's wrong? I can't talk about it over the phone. Please, just come get me. I'm at the office. I'm working, Marion. Can't you drive yourself home? They took my company car, and my laptop, and my access card. Her voice broke. Please, Eli, I need you. For 19 years, when Marion needed me, I dropped everything and come running. When she was sick, when she was scared, when she was overwhelmed by work or family drama. I was always there, her reliable husband, her safe harbor. Not anymore. Call an Uber, I said, and hung up. 20 minutes later, she called back. How could you do this to me? She screamed into the phone. How could you file a complaint with my HR department? How could you try to destroy my career? I have no idea what you're talking about, I lied smoothly. Don't lie to me. They showed me the complaint. It has your name on it, your signature. You accused me of having an affair, of creating a hostile work environment. You gave them evidence, screenshots, private messages. Did I? Huh? Must have slipped my mind. The silence on the other end of the line was deafening. They suspended me, Marion said finally, her voice small and broken. Pending investigation. They suspended Callum too. We're not allowed back in the building, not allowed to contact clients or coworkers. Our email accounts have been frozen. That sounds serious. Serious? Eli, they're going to fire me, both of us. My entire career, everything I've worked for, it's over, because of you. No, I said calmly. It's over because of you. Because you chose to have an affair with a coworker and thought there wouldn't be consequences. We weren't having an affair. Then you have nothing to worry about. I'm sure HR will clear everything up. But we both knew that wasn't going to happen. Paula's evidence was too comprehensive, too damning. Marion and Callum were finished, and we all knew it. I'm coming home, Marion said. We're going to talk about this. Actually, you're not coming home. Jennifer Walsh will be serving you with divorce papers this afternoon. I suggest you find somewhere else to stay tonight. Another long silence. You planned this, Marion whispered. All of it. The family group chat, the HR complaint, the divorce papers. You planned it all. I learned from the best, I said. You've been planning your exit strategy for months. I just decided to plan mine too. Eli, please. We can work this out. We can go to counseling. We can't do anything, Marion. You made your choice. You chose Callum over me, your career over our marriage, your own selfish desires over our family. Now you get to live with those choices. What about Sophie? What about our daughter? That one hit home, but I didn't let it show in my voice. Sophie is 20 years old. She'll understand that sometimes marriages end. She'll also understand that her mother chose to blow up our family for a coworker. I hate you, Marion said, and for the first time in our conversation, she sounded like she meant it. Good, I replied. Now we're even. I hung up and turned off my phone. Outside, it was starting to rain. A cold, steady drizzle that matched my mood perfectly. For the first time in months, I felt like myself again. Not the cuckolded husband, not the last to know, not the boring, predictable man who'd been taken for granted. I felt like someone who'd taken control of his own life. And I wasn't done yet. The divorce papers were served at 3:47 p.m., right in the middle of the downtown business district where Marion had taken refuge in a coffee shop. Jennifer Walsh had made sure the process server found her in the most public, embarrassing way possible. I know this because Paula texted me a photo of Marion's face as she read through the documents. Apparently, she'd been sitting near the window, visible from the street, when the server approached her table. The photo showed Marion looking stunned, humiliated, and completely broken. Her perfect composure had finally cracked. I should have felt satisfaction. Instead, I felt empty. That evening, Marion showed up at the house despite my warning. She looked terrible, makeup smeared, hair disheveled, wearing the same clothes she'd had on that morning. She'd been crying for hours. "We need to talk," she said, pushing past me into the living room. "There's nothing to talk about. You've been served. My attorney will handle everything from here." "This is insane, Eli. You're throwing away 19 years of marriage over a misunderstanding." "A misunderstanding? Is that what we're calling it now?" Marion collapsed onto the couch, burying her face in her hands. "I never meant for any of this to happen. Callum and I, it just developed over time. We connected on a level that you and I haven't in years." "So you decided to have an emotional affair." "It wasn't an affair. We never crossed that line." "Which line? The line where you sleep in his bed? The line where you share intimate details about our marriage? The line where you prioritize his needs over your husband's?" "I made mistakes. I admit that. But we can fix this. We can go to counseling. We can't fix anything, Marion. You don't want to fix anything. You want to keep both of us, the safe, boring husband and the exciting young coworker. Well, you can't have both." She looked up at me with red-rimmed eyes. "Choose him?" "Eli, I lost my job today. Callum lost his job too. There is no him anymore. There's just us, trying to salvage what's left of our family." "Funny how you only want to work on our marriage after your other option disappeared." Marion flinched like I'd slapped her. That's not how it is. Isn't it? If Callum still had his job, if you still had yours, would you be here begging me to take you back? Or would you be planning your new life with him?" She couldn't answer, which was answer enough. "I want half of everything," she said finally, switching tactics. "The house, the business, our savings, I'm entitled to half." "You're entitled to what the court decides you're entitled to. Given the circumstances, that might not be as much as you think." "What circumstances?" "Adultery. Breach of marital trust. The fact that you've been planning to leave me for months while pretending to work on our marriage." Marion's face hardened. "You can't prove adultery. Callum and I never had physical relations." "Maybe not. But I can prove emotional infidelity, financial misconduct, and a pattern of deception. That might be enough." For the first time, I saw fear in her eyes. Real fear, not just anger or hurt feelings. "You're really going to try to destroy me completely, aren't you?" "I'm going to protect myself and my interests, just like you've been doing." She stood up, smoothing down her wrinkled skirt. "Fine. If that's how you want to play this, we'll play it your way. But don't expect me to make this easy for you." "I wouldn't dream of it." After she left, I poured myself a whiskey and sat in my living room, looking at the photos on the mantel. Wedding pictures, family vacations, Sophie's school events. 19 years of shared history that had been reduced to a legal battle over assets and custody arrangements. My phone buzzed with a text from Sophie. "Dad, I heard about the divorce papers. Are you okay?" I typed back, "I'm fine, sweetheart. This is for the best. Can I come home this weekend? I want to see you." "Of course. Your room is exactly the same." "What about Mom?" I stared at that question for a long time before responding. "Your mom is figuring out her living situation. But you're welcome here any time, no matter what." The next few days passed in a blur of legal consultations, financial meetings, and tense phone calls. Marion had hired her own attorney, an expensive one from what I could tell, and was fighting the divorce settlement aggressively. She wanted the house. She wanted half the business. She wanted alimony. She wanted to maintain the lifestyle she'd grown accustomed to, despite being the one who'd blown up our marriage. Jennifer Walsh was earning her fee, though. She'd filed motions, gathered evidence, and built a case that painted Marion as an unfaithful wife who'd prioritized her career and her lover over her family. "The judge is going to love this," Jennifer told me during one of our meetings. "Wronged husband, cheating wife, destroyed careers. It's like a soap opera, but with legal precedent on our side." Meanwhile, the fallout from the HR investigation was spreading through Marion's former workplace like wildfire. Paula had been promoted to senior account manager, Callum's former position, and was apparently making the most of her newfound authority. "Half the office is taking sides," she told me during one of our coffee meetings. "Team Marion thinks you're a vindictive husband who couldn't handle his wife's success. Team Callum thinks Marion seduced an innocent young man. And Team Me thinks they both got what they deserved." "Which team is winning?" "Mine, obviously. Turns out most people don't appreciate coworkers who abuse their positions for personal gain." I was starting to understand why Marion had always complained about Paula. The woman was ruthless, but then again, so was I, apparently. Sophie came home that weekend, and I could see the strain on her face immediately. She was caught in the middle of this mess, forced to navigate the wreckage of her parents' marriage while trying to focus on her own life and education. "I'm sorry," I told her over dinner. "I'm sorry you have to deal with this." "It's not your fault, Dad. I've seen how Mom's been acting lately. The way she talks about Callum, the way she's been treating you. I'm not blind." "She's still your mother. She loves you." "I know, but she made her choices, and now we all have to live with them." Sophie was wise beyond her years, but she was still my little girl. Seeing her hurt by her mother's actions made my anger flare all over again. "Where is Mom staying?" Sophie asked. "With her sister, I think, or maybe she got an apartment. I don't really know." "Have you talked to her?" "Only through lawyers." Sophie nodded, poking at her food. "This is really it, isn't it? You're really getting divorced." "Yeah, sweetheart, we are." "Good," she said quietly. "You deserve better than someone who doesn't appreciate you." The final confrontation came 2 weeks later, at a family gathering I'd forgotten about until Marion's sister called to uninvite me. "I think it would be better if you didn't come," Rebecca said awkwardly, "given everything that's happening with you and Marion." "Of course," I said. "I understand." But I didn't understand. This was Marion's family, the family that had seen the Instagram photo, that had witnessed her lies and excuses, that knew exactly what she'd done to our marriage, and they were closing ranks around her anyway. Family ties were supposed to outweigh everything else, I supposed, even when those ties were deeply flawed. I was working in the garage that Saturday afternoon when Sophie burst through the door, eyes blazing with fury. "Did you know?" she demanded. "Know what?" "About the family barbecue, about Mom showing up with Callum, about her introducing him as her boyfriend." My wrench slipped, scraping my knuckles against the engine block. "What?" "She brought him, Dad, to Aunt Rebecca's house, in front of the whole family, introduced him as her boyfriend like they're some cute couple instead of two people who destroyed multiple relationships." I sat down heavily on a work stool, trying to process this information. "How did the family react?" "Badly. Uncle Michael asked Callum to leave. Grandma wouldn't even look at Mom. Aunt Linda called her a disgrace." Sophie's voice cracked. "And Mom just stood there defending him, saying everyone needed to accept her choices and be happy for her." "Are you okay?" "Am I okay?" "Dad, she humiliated herself in front of everyone. She humiliated me. I'm her daughter, and she chose to parade her boyfriend around like some kind of trophy instead of considering how it would affect me." I pulled Sophie into a hug, feeling her shake with anger and hurt. "I'm sorry, sweetheart. I'm so sorry." "She's lost her mind," Sophie said into my shoulder. "Completely lost her mind, and the worst part is, I don't think she even realizes it." That evening, Marion called me for the first time since the divorce papers had been served. "You've turned my own family against me," she said without preamble. "I haven't done anything to your family." "Sophie won't even talk to me. My sister hung up on me. My mother said I've brought shame on the family name." "Maybe because you brought your boyfriend to a family gathering 2 weeks after being served with divorce papers." "Callum is not my boyfriend." "Then what is he, Marion? What exactly is your relationship with the man you lost your job for, the man you destroyed our marriage for?" Silence on the other end of the line. We're figuring things out," she said finally. "While living together?" "How did you—" She caught herself. "We're roommates. We both needed a place to stay after losing our jobs." "Roommates. Right, just like you were just friends 6 months ago." "This is all your fault," Marion said, her voice rising. "If you hadn't filed that complaint, if you hadn't tried to destroy our careers, Callum and I could have handled this professionally." "Professionally?" "Marion, you were having an emotional affair with a coworker. There was nothing professional about it. I was mentoring him. I was helping him advance his career. By sharing confidential information with him, by undermining your colleagues, by using company resources to further your personal relationship. You don't understand the corporate world, Eli. You never have. Everything is about relationships, about networking, about building alliances. And sleeping in your alliance partner's bed? I told you, that was a mistake, right? The mistake that started 6 months ago and continued right up until you both got fired." Marion was quiet for a long time. When she spoke again, her voice was small and defeated. "What do you want from me, Eli? What will it take for you to forgive me?" "I want you to take responsibility for your choices. I want you to admit that you prioritized another man over your husband and daughter. I want you to acknowledge that you destroyed our marriage for someone you're now claiming is just a roommate. And if I do that, then maybe we can have a civil divorce instead of a bitter one. Maybe we can co-parent Sophie without putting her in the middle of our mess. Maybe we can both move on with our lives." "I can't," she whispered. "I can't admit to things that aren't true." "Then we have nothing more to talk about." I hung up and turned off my phone, feeling exhausted. Outside, it was getting dark, and I could see the lights coming on in houses throughout the neighborhood. Normal families having normal Saturday evenings, probably dealing with normal problems like homework and household chores and what to watch on television. I envied them. The divorce was finalized 3 months later. Jennifer Walsh had done her job well. I kept the house, the business, and most of our savings. Marion got enough to start over, but not enough to maintain the lifestyle she'd grown accustomed to. She and Callum had moved to another city where they'd both found new jobs at a smaller marketing firm. According to Sophie, they were still together, still claiming to be figuring things out. Some people never learned. Sophie finished her junior year with honors and spent the summer working at the shop with Danny and me. She was good with the customers, better with the books, and showed a real aptitude for the business side of things. "Maybe I should switch majors," she said one afternoon, looking up from a stack of invoices. "Business management instead of marketing." "Because of your mother." "Because I like this better. I like working with real people, solving real problems, building something tangible." I smiled, feeling proud. "Whatever makes you happy, sweetheart." That evening, as I was closing up the shop, my phone buzzed with a notification. Someone had tagged me in a Facebook post. It was Marion, sharing photos from some marketing conference she and Callum had attended. They were both smiling, both dressed professionally, both trying to project success and happiness. The caption read, "So grateful for second chances and new beginnings. Sometimes life takes you exactly where you need to be." I stared at the post for a long time, waiting to feel something. Anger, hurt, jealousy, regret. But all I felt was a kind of distant sadness for the woman I used to love, who was still trying to convince the world, and herself, that she'd made the right choices. I deleted the notification without responding and drove home to my empty house, where I made dinner for one and watched the news in comfortable silence. For the first time in almost a year, I felt at peace. The next morning, Danny arrived at work with coffee and a newspaper. "You see this?" he asked, spreading the local business section on my desk. There, in the middle of the page, was an article about Paula Hendricks being promoted to regional manager at Marion's former company. The photo showed her in a power suit, standing in front of the office building where Marion had once worked. "She got everything she wanted," Danny observed. "Seems like it." "You ever regret it? Getting involved with her, I mean." I thought about it. Paula had used me as much as I'd used her. We'd both gotten what we wanted, Marion's downfall, but for different reasons. She'd wanted revenge for a stolen promotion. I'd wanted justice for a betrayed marriage. "No," I said finally. "I don't regret it." Even knowing that Marion and Callum ended up together anyway? They were always going to end up together, Danny. That decision was made long before I found that Instagram photo. I just made sure there were consequences for it. Danny nodded, folding up the newspaper. "My dad would have been proud of you. You played it smart." "Smart," I repeated. "Yeah, I guess I did." But as I went back to work, rebuilding an engine that someone else had broken, I wondered if smart was the same thing as right. Marion had made her choices, and I'd made mine. We'd both gotten what we'd wanted, in the end. The question was whether any of us were actually happy with the results. I pushed the thought away and focused on the engine in front of me. Some things could be fixed, rebuilt, made better than before. Others just had to be replaced entirely. Either way, life went on. And for the first time in a long time, I was okay with that.